VA loan rates have dropped by over a half a point, which means that veterans are now going to be able to save a significantly more amount of money on their monthly payment. In this video, we're going to break down exactly why this rate drop happened, what this does to the housing market, and also how much more money you're going to be saving by having a rate in today's market versus a rate in a market like 30 days ago. So first, let's address the elephant in the room. Why did mortgage rates go down to begin with? The first reason is going to be a weaker jobs market. In July of 2024, the jobs that were created were actually less than had been anticipated, which means that the economy could be slowing down. What this has created is concerns for an economic downturn, meaning the economy could be heading towards a recession. Now, before you go stressing about the infamous R word, what you need to understand is recessions don't necessarily have a negative effect on the real estate market. They do, however, have an effect on the other forms of financial markets, for example, like the stock market. You see, in real estate during 2020 and 2021, when we actually saw interest rates at the lowest levels that they had ever been, this actually came off of the back of a recession that happened in the early point of 2021. This created a lot of opportunity for homebuyers because interest rates were so low, and it allowed them to be able to come into the market, thus creating more homeowners than really we had ever had. Now, why would the Federal Reserve cut rates on the back of a weaker jobs market and also economic downturn? This is because they're trying to stimulate the economy. And this is good for homebuyers because it means cheaper mortgage rates, which means cheaper monthly payments and more potential borrowing power to be able to qualify. The cool thing about all of this is even though interest rates have dropped by roughly that half a point, like I mentioned, what we're actually expecting is another drop in about another 30-day period towards the month of late September. Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about what monthly payments would look like with where rates were about 30 days ago, where rates currently are, and then also where rates are forecasted to go. Because as I mentioned, the Federal Reserve did say that they are anticipating another potential rate cut in the month of September. That could be anywhere between a quarter of a point cut to another half of a point. Now, a half point would be amazing, but more than likely it could possibly just be a quarter of a point. Let's go over some monthly payment options. The first thing that we're going to look at is what a monthly payment would look like on a property. So I have some calculators up here and I have already pre-filled some information just for the sake of time. And I have looked at a specific property in San Antonio, Texas, where I currently live. I wanted to pick a property that was roughly right around where the median sales price is on a nationwide scale because it gives us a little bit more of a broader picture across a multitude of places. Now, obviously things like property taxes and homeowners insurance will definitely vary, but I wanted to kind of keep the price roughly around the same. So $435,000. And then what we're going to go back and look at is where interest rates were. If you go right here to July 5th of 2024, interest rates were at 6.52%. And then you fast forward really along this timeline and you'll see rates had dropped just to 5.79. Now you do see it bump up just slightly right here, but there's a reason for that. One of the biggest reasons for why rates actually would have bumped up on a day like yesterday, which as I'm recording this video was Monday the 5th, is because typically the market actually does open in a little bit more of a conservative fashion. I usually look at interest rates between the middle of the week to typically be better than where they were to start or end a week. So we're going to use 5.79 for the sake of our example based on today's rates, and then we're going to use 6.52 as a month ago's rates. So if we come over here to this calculation, 6.52 at 435 for the property that we have in question, I have already added in what the annual taxes, insurance, and HOA would be, and then we're going to go ahead and hit calculate there. It brings our principal and interest to $2755.22, and I'm only using principal and interest because again, taxes and insurance is heavily going to vary across different markets. Some places could have taxes being slightly higher, whereas a lot of places could have taxes being slightly lower because here in Texas, our property taxes are on more of the higher side compared to other places. I'm going to use the principal and interest here at $27.55 and 22 cents. And then if we go and look at where rates currently are at 5.79, well, let's go ahead and calculate that. I have the same data right there as well. And we'll calculate that and it gives us $25.49 and 61 cents. So if you do $27.55.22 and you subtract $25.49 from that, that is a $205 a month difference. That's a huge bonus for somebody that's looking at buying a house right now or locking a rate in right now to definitely have the ability to save some money. Now, if you go over here, these are the two calculators that I want to use for where rates could go in another 30-day period. When we do this calculation, we're kind of forecasting as if nothing changes, meaning the seller doesn't delist the property. It's still listed for the same price and you still have the same negotiating power. So we're going to use 435. And then what we're also going to do is here, we're actually going to do 5.5 because we're going to anticipate a 1/4% rate cut from where we currently are, which was 5.79. So it's slightly more than a quarter, but I like to round it off to 5.5. So if that rate's 5.5 using those same other metrics and we calculate that monthly payment, it's $2469.88. That is a pretty sizable amount in difference. If you do $27.55, which is where rates were a month ago, and then $24.69, where rates could be in 30 more days, that's $285. So that's $80 more a month in savings. I say this with air quotes, by potentially waiting. That could be pretty good. But let's also look at it from the perspective of, if it's not a quarter point rate cut, let's look at it from a half a point rate cut. So let's say it's 5.25. That would be really awesome. 5.25 would be huge. 2402. So pretty big difference there. Was that $67 between those two payments right there, just from it being a quarter point cut to a half a point cut. But if you do the difference between where rates could be with that half a point cut versus where they were a month ago, you're talking about, $353. That is a massive savings that could be in play there. Now, what this does do for potential home buyers that are looking at getting in the market right now is it allows them to potentially have to deal with the negotiation aspect of what the monthly payment, or what the sales price would be on the house that isn't in question, but then be able to lock the rate at a later time. So those are some other things that are variables that you want to keep in mind of as well when going through this process. If we backtrack to really the 2020 and 2021 markets, when interest rates were at historic lows, the reason home prices had gone up at such a rapid pace was because there were so many people trying to buy the same house. There was a lot of competition, and it allowed sellers to have a lot of leverage when it comes to what offers they were going to accept versus what offers they weren't even going to consider. When you look at the market currently, prior to interest rates having come down in the last roughly couple of weeks, what we had saw was less of that control for the seller. Now, sure, it wasn't necessarily a buyer's market, but it was a little bit more in favor of the home buyer, allowing them to be able to negotiate things like credits and be able to get homes a little bit more on a discount in some situations. At the end of the day, what you need to understand is rates and home prices vary based on the market. But the most important thing that you can have in your corner to allow you to get the best possible deal is going to be the team that you are working with. See, a lot of veterans make the mistake of going on Google and picking the first VA lender because they have the biggest marketing budget and it allows them to show up first. Well, me and my team specialize in doing VA loans, and our focus is not on just trying to capture your information and talk you into doing something that you're not prepared to do. We want to make sure that you better understand the VA loan as a whole and also better understand your personal situation so that you can maximize your VA loan power. If you have questions or want to connect with somebody on my team, click the link down below, book a call with me, and I will be able to explain exactly how to get the ball rolling and be able to help you start your journey. What I want you to remember is Jesus loves you, and he paid the ultimate price for your life. So if you turn to him, trust in him, and believe in him, he has a beautiful plan and purpose for you and your family.